Here on Soul Conversations with Bambi, I want to introduce to you a very special guest. Meet Andrew Hefley. Andrew is a 32-year-old who's all about family and community. He's a proud dad, soon to be 5 times over. He brings a mix of dad wisdom and youthful energy to his journey. But here's the cool part. Andrew isn't just a dad. He's also a 2-time author. His first book, Vision from a Boy's Papa, dives into dreams inspired by his grandpa. His latest book, Think Rich, Grow Rich, spills the secrets on building wealth through positive thinking, the law of attraction, and good thought habits. Now, both of those books are available on Amazon. But it doesn't stop there. Andrew has left his mark in leadership, serving as vice president of the Detention Deputy Advisory Council at Arkansas's biggest detention facility. He even played a key role in starting a local nonprofit in Mountain Home, Arkansas. Ever heard of a city councilman who's an author? Well, now you have. Andrew actively shaped his community's future in that role, but that's not the end of the story. He's all about giving back, volunteering, and mentoring, championing service and mentorship. Oh, did I mention he's also a motivational life coach too? Using his diverse experiences, Andrew guides folks toward personal growth and success, all while believing in the power of positive thinking and intentional visualization. So there you have it. Andrew Hefley, rocking the family life, making waves in the community, and dropping wisdom bombs throughout his books and his coaching. Welcome, Andrew.
Hey, Bambi. So
So,
awesome to be on here.
it's great to see you. I feel like maybe we should tell a little bit about you and I've known each other for probably 7 years. And when we met, I was working for an attorney's office, and you had a full-time job, and you were growing in your entrepreneurship, which I think you were born that way anyway. But you knocked on the door and you wanted to wash the windows. So I'm thinking, this is such a cool kid. So our relationship, and you were a kid age-wise, but I don't know that you've ever been a kid in your wisdom. But anyway, I just took you in like I loved you like you were my own kid. I mean, it was an instant connection. So then when you would come to wash the windows, we would get to visit. So we have built this over time. And I just do want to say that I've always been so proud of you and your accomplishments and your mind and the way you are a dad, and everything makes me so heart proud of you. And I do feel like I'm your soul mama, your spirit mama. We do have that connection. So it's an honor to be here. And I want to ask you a few questions if you're okay with that. Just a general overview of what's going on in your life, because you are never still. And I love that about you.
Yeah, definitely. I'm up for any of it. So, and you're right, like it's pretty wild to think about ever since I was a teenager in high school, I think, or middle school, I used to tell people like every day goes by faster than the last. And I'm 32 now, and I've been saying it since then. And every day it becomes more and more true. And it's so wild to think that 7 years ago is whenever I met you, from exactly that. Just like you said, I mean, I just walked inside and said, hey, told you about myself. I've started a window cleaning business and kind of give you a free quote, and then it just kind of took off, like our like exactly you said too, spirit mom. Like I really feel like you're spirit mother to me, and hearing you talk me up just now, I really appreciate it. It almost kind of started making me a little teary-eyed because we need to hear that kind of stuff. It's really important, and it holds so much weight coming from you especially, so thank you for that. But yeah, every time I came in there, we just have just these phenomenal conversations. I mean, really.
And then we would run into each other randomly, like one night at Harps. I remember, there's nothing random.
Yep.
You and I don't believe that there's random things. So the ability to follow your life all this time is just makes my heart so happy. And now you've written 2 books and you're doing coaching, and so many things are going on in your life. So I would just like to hit on a little bit of all of it if you're up for it.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So the first book you wrote, and actually it's pretty wild because you and I talked about the makings of this book back when we met. You know, we talked about these stories and everything, and then in time you turned it into a book. But it's called Visions from a Boy's Papa. And I know how special your papa was too, and it makes me a little teary. But how did the experiences with your grandfather shape your perspective on life? Because he was so influential. So if you could just talk a little about that book and how it all came about.
Yeah. So it made me teary-eyed. Thanks. Yeah. Goodness, I don't even know. Like, I'm almost afraid to. I'll move it real quick and show you and take a chance. But up there, that's him up there at the very top. And, I've carried that with me for a long time. Ever since he passed away, I've had that with me. So anytime I've moved, he's always been with me. There's no doubt about it. But my papa, man, what can I say? So, basically the start of it is when I was 10 years old, he took me in under his wing. It was my dad, he's a great guy. He's an amazing papa to my boys. But at that time, in that time of his life, my dad didn't have the best cards in his hands. So, he made some mistakes, was going through some challenges. And that, of course, affected our relationship. It affected, the custody of me. But luckily, I was blessed to have a grandfather or papa who could step in and take me under his wing. And my dad immediately, like after, losing custody over me and all that and going through those challenges and facing his own challenges to get through, he immediately was making those changes, for the positive. So it wasn't like he kept going down that dark path. It was just like he had hit the rock bottom, his son was taken away, and now there it is. But like I said, not trying to cast shade that on my dad, because I always like to say that so people know that, hey, my dad's around. He's a great guy. He can be a little bullheaded at times, but he's a good guy. But my papa, it's just because of how it all happened and the age I believe that I was at, still developing and at 10 years old, him and we had this strong connection from the get-go. And then him raising me and just being in those young teen years, it was more than a grandfather. He really became like a dad to me, with all the respect to my dad as well. But he really did. He became like a second father to me. So we had this connection, this bond that was more than just like, oh, I'm seeing grandpa for the weekend. You know what I mean? But growing up, we ended up getting in this habit. It kind of just formed where at the end of our day, I'd come home from school, he'd come back from work, and I'd just go into his room and kind of just sit down with him. And as soon as he see me, he's like, "Hey, my man, how was your day?" And we'd hug and then we would just talk. And we'd always share these stories either about our day, or he'd tell me stories about his past when he was a kid, just off the wall, crazy stories, like our back in the day kind of stories. And just everything, we just talk about everything. And he was really my mentor. I mean, he was my first mentor I ever had. He was somebody that I could really, geez, just talking about it like chokes me up. You just sit down and just kind of unload everything. And he was my wise man. Like that's who he really was. So it's just a little touch of it, but
He's with you. I mean, you and I know that
yeah.
are parts of him that will always, always, always be with you. So in that book, there's a lot about a dream. Now I've read the book, but you want to give a brief overview of content of that book, because you and I have the dream thing going. I mean, some people listening probably know that dreams and then boom. Well, you do the same. So if you want to just give us a synopsis of what the book is about.
Of course, definitely honored to do so. All right. So before I can tell you a little bit about visions, I have my first book. I have to kind of give you just a little bit of my experience with dreams, because that's really what was like the premise of what set it off for the book. Whenever I've had several dreams in my life where I have basically, it was just an insight to my future, but I didn't realize that the dreams were like revealing my future until after I experienced everything in the dream. I'll quickly explain this one. The first one that really hit home was, I remember in a dream, I had walked upstairs in my papa's house. There was downstairs and upstairs. So I walked upstairs and I had turned and looked at the TV. Now the TV, this was a big screen TV. It has a huge box background. And I looked over at it. This woman's talking, brings a man on. The man, he's the new president of the United States. And I'm going to go through this real fast. And then the next thing in the dream was two military men came in. We sat down at a table. We were looking over documents. And then my papa comes into the living room. He signs off. Now I look to the left outside, and the driveway, not the driveway, the road by the house kind of goes up an incline. And these trucks, I forget the name of the trucks, but they're military trucks, the ones with just the front seat, and then in the back it's got the benches on each side, and it carries the soldiers. Well, there's like 3 or 4 or 5 of them with soldiers on the back driving up the road. And then that was the end of the dream. Well, fast forward, and that was like I was 14, I think, maybe 15. Well, fast forward when I was 17, and in real life, I'm in basic training, and I don't know if I had woken up or if I just kind of sat down on my bunk, and then that dream came back to me, and I realized everything in the dream had happened and come to fruition because the president of the United States was Barack Obama. He was just elected as a president, and then I had met with 2 military individuals. Now they didn't. I don't know if they both came into the house, but one was Air Force and the other one was Army, and they had actually, you know what? There was 2 military ones. Yeah, it was a National Guard guy came into the house. So I just remembered that. So 2 military people did come into the house at different times. And then with the Army one, I went with the Army. And he actually, since I was 17, my papa had to sign over for me to be able to go in. So he signed the documents just like in the dream. And then in basic training at Fort Knox, I saw those trucks. It was in the back of one of them. So that was pretty wild to have that like realization and that moment of like, oh wow, it just came back to me and said, hey, you've experienced it all. Look at what I just showed you, right? And I say that from like a God's perspective of him saying, hey, look, pay attention. I'm letting you know things. So we fast forward now towards the book and Visions from a Boy's Papa. And one night I was working at Lowe's, and then I had left Lowe's and went to go work at a furniture store, FFO Home at the time, started selling furniture. And I was a little nervous because it was commission only. And I wasn't used to that ever. But I took the leap of faith and I jumped into it. And then I remember coming home after getting my first check, and I'd cashed my check and I'd come home and I had like $750 or something. And when I walked into the trailer, I walked in and I paused for a moment because something just kind of grabbed my attention in my mind and said, hey, stop, you need to call your papa. And it wasn't a real like a huge big stop. It was just a very quiet but subtle, but enough to kind of like let me stop and think about him. And it just told me to stop and call him and tell him that I loved him and basically tell him good night. But just the main thing was to tell him I loved him. And I had hesitated for that second instead of just doing it because I thought, oh, it's kind of late. I don't want to call him and him trying to go to sleep, And then in that moment, when I had hesitated and thought about when I was in the doubt, my self-doubt, it was in that moment that I heard my oldest son, Matthew, kind of make some noise, and his mama make some noise too. And then I went ahead and just went in there, and I remember throwing the money down at the table. I said, hey, honey, look at this. We're going to be all right. Like it's good. Like everything is good. Like this is a good decision. And then the next day I go in to work, and I think it was a Sunday, and I just remember the weather was getting bad. It was getting snowy outside, and I get in there and I get inside. I go towards the back. My dad calls me, and I pick up the phone, and I was like, hang on one second, Dad. I'm just putting my stuff down. He's like, okay. And I go through the back door from the break room into the back, and I was getting ready to go outside so I could actually take the call. But as I walked through that back door, he said, hey, are you sitting down? And it was at that moment that I literally fell to the ground and just started weeping. I just started crying because he didn't even he didn't even have to tell me. I just knew. I could feel it and in his voice and everything. So yeah, so we do that whole thing, I go home and we do the funeral, and it was probably just a couple days after maybe we had buried him, and I just remember sitting there, and I used to pray every night, and I still do pray every night, but I just remember that night I was praying, and when I talk to God and I pray like I'm talking to you right now. I mean, I have a conversation,
Exactly.
and I treat it just like anything else. So I was sitting there and I just prayed out and I said, God, you you showed me some dreams in my past and they came true, and I don't know why you did that. I know and I know it'll come to me someday at some reason why you do these things for me. But I know that you were trying to tell me to call him that night and tell him I loved him, and I didn't take that opportunity. And so I just gave it to him and I said, I don't know if it's okay if I'm even supposed to ask this question. If I'm sorry if I'm not supposed to, but I'm gonna ask it. Can I have the chance to say goodbye to my papa and just have him come to me in a dream? The dream basically when I was in this cabin, and then I just immediately walked outside the cabin and I looked to my left and I see my papa sitting there like on this little bench, and he looks up at me, and I'll kind of turn so you can kind of imagine. So he looks up at me and he's got this black book in his hand and he's just doing this, like trying to like say, hey, this is pay attention to this. I need you to pay attention to this. And okay, so I see that, and then I acknowledge it, and then about the same time I acknowledge it, it disappeared. And then he's telling me to sit down. Well, funny story about this. Our mouths aren't moving. We're communicating. Like I know what he's telling me what to do, and the things he's saying. So he has me sit down. I sit down and crisscross applesauce on the wooden planks. And I'm sitting there and he says, look, look in front of you. And in front of me, there's these spears, what I call spears. And basically it's these little metal pieces about yay long. And there's a point on each end. And it looks kind of like an eye shape any which way you turn it. Right. And they're laying there, and there's 7 of them. And on these 7 spears, they're just kind of like silver looking, chrome looking. And he tells me to turn them over. And so as I turn one over each one, going from right to left, as I go from right to left, they become brighter and brighter in a gold appearance. And then the last one is super gold, shiny looking, bright. It's just beautiful. But he tells me, he says, this is my life. And this is how my life had started and how it ended, and how it was just beautiful, and he had a beautiful life, and he was very loved, and he loved a lot, and he's very grateful for it. And then he told me to turn him over again, and that this was going to be my life, but he told me to turn it over again, and I turned over each one of them one by one, right to left again, and it got from gray to black. And he said, this is your life. This is what your life is going to be like. I was like, and at first, and for the longest time, I was like, is that going to be my whole life? Is that going to be like my life is going to be evil and dark? And I'm not an evil person. What's going on? And so after the dream, it always kind of spooked me, about that. I didn't know what was going on, where my life was going to go. But it definitely wasn't a depiction of my entire life. It was a depiction of the amount of time. So there was more to the dream, but essentially this part real quick, I'll explain. There were 7 of them. Well, he died at 72. And then there was, I don't know if I want to tell all of it because I want people to like read the books. I don't want to give it away. Wow. But basically it's a depiction of years, how many years. So 7 years. And so it's like a 7-year tribulation that I was going to go through. But I found that out, like I said, years later after the dream. But the next part of the dream, he told me I had to like run, or I had to leave. So I just felt like this urge. I had to run and get away from something after I saw those 7 spears turn over and go from light to dark, and him tell me this was going to be my life. I took off running down this pier, and I saw this man. I was following this man. We got on a boat, and as we're going super fast against the water, just taking off, I look behind me. I don't see nobody, but I know I'm running from something or someone. Then we get to this grassy hillside, and it's all foggy out. We get off the boat. We walk up the hillside. We're on top of it. It's like a trail, but it's like a grassy trail, just like it had been stomped down. And I can see to the left side, to the right side, how the hill went down. It was just like foggy and more hillsides. Couldn't really see anything. We just kept walking. And then all of a sudden, we get to this huge gate. And it was just like this almost this gray silver like barn siding or something, but out of aluminum. I know it's not making any sense, but it was just old looking and just not tore up, but just old looking and rusty and stuff. But there was a man at the top of it, and he says, halt, who goes there, kind of a thing. And I was like, okay, well, there we go. So he gets our attention, and the man I was following ends up vouching for me, and then that's how I was let in from this other man. So I go inside, and then everything is super bright, but you can see everything, but it was just bright, it's well lit. It was just like the sun was out and there was nothing obstructing the view, and everyone was just in a school. It seemed like it was like these holding books and studying and laughing. And as I was walking around, I was seeing all these different like ancient arts, and there was this man who had these stones that were floating on top of each other, and had these individuals around him, and he was explaining to them how they were floating. And I know it seems so bizarre, but that was what the dream was. But it was just like I said, it was ancient ways of how to do certain things, right? Like lost ways that we don't no longer know how to do. And then that was the end of the dream. I got to explore in there for a little while, and then that was the end of the dream. So that's the first dream, the visions from a boy's papa, and some more before that.
Yeah, it's powerful. I remember back when we met and in those years that we would talk about some of the mystery that this book brought a resolution to. And we won't go into all that, because yes, you want people to read the book, but there were back then that you were looking for an object, and and then so finally everything comes full circle, and that is so beautiful. Timing, God's timing. We always have to wait on the timing, and I think that's where people stop short, or they give up short. They forget that it isn't on our time, it's on his time. So you progress through, and in the proper time things were revealed to you because you were patient and you didn't.
Exactly.
You kept pushing, and Papa had planted so much in you that you just could keep drawing on that and drawing on that and drawing on that. So thank you for sharing that. I loved it. I loved the book. Of course, I had the background that other people will too now. So, okay, now
Right.
we talked about your latest book, Think Rich, Grow Rich. Now, as you can see, I've made myself some notes. I've already read, I made some notes. It's not only is the content great, but it's so pretty. I mean, it's just a nice looking, speaking like a woman. It is a and it is full of wisdom nuggets. But it delves into the mindset of wealth creation. So I know you have stories. Could you share a personal story or a realization that prompted you to explore these very principles in your own life? This is built on your wisdom and what you have figured out as you've gone along. So do you have anything you can share about that? How'd you get here?
Ooh, man. There are so many examples in my life that I could share, honest to God. I will tell. I know exactly what story I'll tell real fast. So I say real fast, but that won't happen. So first off, my belief, my spiritual belief, I'm more of in the Christian realm of belief systems. And even though I'm very spiritual, and I may not be like what you would say considered like a traditional Christian because of the beliefs, but honestly, if you were really just being bluntly honest here, I think that the traditional Christian would be exactly what I'm saying and talking about and what this book talks about, because everything that I basically discuss most of the things that are in my book and how I live my life are based off what Christ taught his disciples and taught his followers. And a lot of people, they think it's just like smoke and mirrors, but it's not. And I think if you're really a Christian and you say you're a Christian, well, then you should follow it, because he says this, so follow it to the T. I mean, this is what he's told you. He literally said, and then I'll get into the example, that you can do all things that I'm doing and greater things than these. You're talking about the Son of God saying us can do the same things he was doing and greater things than these. And I think that a lot of us have lost our way on that, but I do feel like a lot of this is coming back. So an example would be whenever after my papa and I buried him up again, one of the things he said to me was, you got to find something in life that you love to do and then find someone to pay you to do it. Well, that's pretty common sense. You know, a lot of us, it's a common thing for a lot of us to know. But at that time, I was trying to figure out, because I have that entrepreneurial spirit in me, what can I do that I'm passionate about and be paid to do it? And I remember I was working at Lowe's, is before I started FFO, and I was heading home, and I was sitting there smoking a cigar, and I was just driving in my little SUV, and I thought about that, and I just kind of like, I didn't stop the car, but I just stopped in my mind for a second and looked down at my hand. I said, well, I love smoking cigars. Well, why don't I do something with this? So I start getting into that, and I start going through that path. Excuse me. I start going through that path, and I start putting a business plan together. I mean, I still have it today. It's like a business plan this thick. I mean, I really jumped into it and delved into it. Well, he passed away, even though, we were looking at places and buildings, but he had passed away. And, I had that whole time of grieving, and I didn't know what to do, and I was lost. Well, I finally picked it back up, and I said, okay, I'm going to keep pursuing this, but instead of doing the original idea, I'll do something else, but still in cigars. And I remember getting to the point where I had spent more time studying, more time trying to figure out what I was going to do, and then when I nailed it down, said, this is what I'm going to do, now I need X, Y, and Z. Well, I figured out X, but I couldn't figure out Z, right? And what that was someone I can get the cigars from, so basically a wholesaler. Well, being in my faith, I was praying about it. And one night again, I was sitting there at my bed, getting ready to go to sleep. And I'm having an open-eyed conversation with God. And I said, God, Father God, I have no idea what to do right now. I'm lost. Said, I'm very passionate about this. I don't know if this is something that, you will grant me and you will give me, or you'll let me just explore. But I do know one thing, as far as if there's any obstacle, if there's anything that's on our chest, it says to give it to you. And you also say, ask and you shall receive, right? It gives some different like criteria around that, like pray and believe as if you've already received it, fast and things like that. So there's criteria that you have to kind of implement. But I just said, I know that if we ask, we shall receive, we believe, it can be given to us. And I brought up to God in my conversation, I said, you said that if we tell that mountain to move, it will move. And I was like, I don't know if you mean it'll literally fall down right now, or if it means that if I want to move and I believe it'll move, that I'll have enough faith that I'll go move a stone a day, or I'll go with my vision, have 1,000 other people help me move that, because I have a vision powerful enough and the faith to back it up, and we'll move it and it'll move. So I said, I don't know which one it is, but I believe it's something, and I'm giving it to you. And I believe right now that in my heart that I'm wanting to find this, and I know, and there's no doubt in me that you'll help me find the person to make this happen. And I said, so I'm giving it to you. I'm giving it to you, and it's yours. I thanked them for it, thanked them in advance for it, told them I loved them, and I closed my prayer with that and went to sleep. The next day, and now I'm working at FFO Home. Now I'm in FFO Home, and I'm sitting down in the recliner early in the morning, and I'm with a coworker, and her and I were sitting down next to each other in recliners, and I know she was a strong Christian, strong believer. So I had a quick conversation with her, and I said, hey, here's I try not to say her name, but not that I think she would care, because I mean it's all factual. But either way, without the permission, I don't want to say it. But I said, I'll just make up a name. I'll say Sue. So I said, hey Sue, I know you're really in the Bible, and you're a strong Christian as well. Let me ask you about that part about the mountain. Do you believe that Jesus was being literal or metaphorical when he said that? And she told me her answer, and she thought it was more metaphorical with that, kind of like my faith would be strong enough in God and Christ that I would like have other people help me move it with my vision, right? So, and I told her, I said, you know what? I'm having a real hard time thinking it's just metaphorical. I said, I know that may sound crazy, but here's why I think it's so literal. I think if you had enough faith and you fasted and you did exactly what he said, and I know I might get a lot of flack, but it's okay, bring it, folks. But but I said, here's the example. I believe you could literally tell that mountain to fall, and it would fall, and it would listen to you. And here's why: because even the disciple walked on water when he believed and kept his eyes on Christ. He literally walked on the water. So if we're supposed to be a Christian, and we're supposed to believe that a man walked on water, then why can't this man or that woman be able to do the exact same thing today, right? So I said, and the moment that I finished it, the moment I finished saying what I said, the door rang and a man came in. It was it was my turn to take whoever comes in, and she goes her way. I get up on the counter, pretend I was sitting on the computer the whole time and not on the recliner.
Oh
And
yeah.
this man walks, yeah, like I was totally working, And this man comes in and he's looking over to off my right shoulder towards the office. And I was like, oh goodness, okay, well, I'll have to turn it over or split the cell. No big deal, but it won't be officially my cell. That's okay. And so I was like, hey, howdy, how you doing today? And he's like, oh, good. So you looking for somebody? And he said, yeah, I'm looking for Richard. Now I'll bring his name up because I know he won't care if I bring his name up. He's a good friend of mine. But I was like, oh, okay. Well, Richard's not here today. I'd be more happy to help you out. And he starts moving towards me now, and from the front of the store. And I said, where are you from? And he kind of did a little chuckle, and he said, Nicaragua. And I laughed like just like this, and I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean? And now he's like almost to the counter, and he kind of laughs. He's like, no, seriously, get this. He said, I'm a missionary, and I live in Nicaragua most of the year. I couldn't believe it because the first thing I'm thinking of is my prayer. First, when he said Nicaragua, that was like ding, and then he said he was a missionary. That was the next one. So then I straight out asked him. I said, "Do you smoke cigars?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "No flipping way." And I got a prayer I have to tell you about, a conversation I had last night. And when I told him about it, he said, "I know just the person you need to speak to." And that very night, Bambi, he invited me over to sit on the back of his porch to smoke the last 2 cigars he had from Nicaragua, from that very person who about a year and a half later, I went to Nicaragua and met and still have the contract to this day. I didn't end up doing anything with it, but,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, yes. But I had a phenomenal time, phenomenal connection down there. But the point and the moral of that story is exactly that I believed and had faith, and I put it into action, and I put it out there, and boom, the next day this man walks in, and not only does he smoke cigars, not only is he in Nicaragua most of the year, but he was a missionary, man of God. God sent a man of his to come to speak to me. So just phenomenal. So if you want a really powerful one, that's a really powerful one right there to give.
The thing that I love is that we share our relationship in that we just talk to God. It's about relationship. I woke up one night and I was having this dream, and I woke up and this is what I heard myself say. Well, now, Daddy, what are we going to do about this? So much. There is so much about relationship and just being bold and honest, and this is who I am and this is how it is. I love that about you because the relationship is at the forefront of this. That is the nature of your relationship. I love that. Yeah. So now we could talk a little bit about believe, you receive, and in these things that are in alignment with something that some people would call the law of attraction. So in your book, you talk about the law of attraction, visualization, which I love and understand too, positive thoughts. How do you incorporate these concepts into your daily routine, and what impact have they had maybe as being a father, an author, a life coach? How do you use these habits to shape your life?
Yeah, that's great. So honestly, I think what comes to my mind right now is that it's a conversation that I had with one of my really good friends, and I call him my philosophical hermit. Mm-hmm. And he actually, you know what? I won't even mention his name because I'm gonna tell him to watch this, and he's gonna see this and know who I'm talking about.
Okay.
But my philosophical hermit, right? That's what I call him. And he is just like, he's just a phenomenal friend. Just one of those guys you can call any day, pick up the phone, and he'll just talk to you. And we can talk about anything that's nothing or nothing that's everything, right? It's just one of those things. And he said to me, this was in 2011, 12, something like that. I remember I was going through a difficult time, and he said, Andrew, I want to tell you to just harden up your heart and just, become hardened to the world and not let those things affect you. He says, but at the same time, I can't tell you that because that would lose the thing that I love about you so much and makes you so unique is that you have such a big heart and, you care and you think about these things, and he's like, so I can't tell you that. So what I'll tell you instead is this. If that's your pain to bear, then bear it. If that's your pain to bear, then bear it.
Wow.
And I remember it was a few years later, right, that my papa passed away. But before he had passed away, my great grandmother passed away, his mother, who was basically my grandmother. I mean, my actual well, one of my grandmothers, on my dad's side, passed away before I was born. My grandmother on my mom's side was living in California. I just met her in 2021, I think. So, I hadn't met her like my whole life. So that was my only grandmother, was Grammy, which was my great grandmother. So when she passed away, the day that we buried her was the same day Matthew, my oldest son, was born. I don't have it here, but one of the first pictures of me and my oldest son is me in like a three-piece suit because I had just walked next door and gave a eulogy in a poem and then buried my great grandmother and then came in and had him, right? And we held on to him. So anyway, so she had passed. Then a couple months later, my papa passed. And then not even a month after that, I had to put my dogs down because they started running around, I guess, with the coyotes or something, getting cattle. So that's a crazy story. But it was this death, then life with my son, then death with my papa, then more death. And it was just all this pain and just so much pain. I mean, just so much pain I went through in just about 3 months time, constant pain. And so I ended up getting that tattooed on my back. The pain is mine to bear, because of how much it really stuck with me. You we're talking 3-4 years later. And, I still carried what he said with me and I literally carry it every day. But to answer your question though, like using the things that I've discussed, how do I use it in my own life? A real big part of it is just that. Like I told him, I said, and I still say it today, that I could either choose to let the world affect me, right? And in return, what it's giving me, right? That darkness, in return that, or I can take it and just keep letting my light shine and be who I am going to be and decide who I want to be every day and do that instead. And so that's how I live my life. I'm just going to be, not that I don't get mad or sad or depressed or down and out. I just choose how long I stay there, right? And I get up faster every time.
You choose, Andrew. One of the biggest revelations that I had probably happened in the past 4 years. I've had several, but the power of choice. People need to realize we have the power of choice. And it might not just be choice 1, choice 2. It could be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But we get to choose. We get to choose our response. We get to choose our faith or lack thereof. We get to choose our direction. Things happen where it feels like we don't have choice. And in those cases, we still get to choose how we respond. If that challenge is going to be seen as an opportunity, right?
Right.
So the power of choice is amazing. And I'm so glad to hear you bring that up because it took me a long time to learn that.
Right.
And here you are. And it should be taught that we have the power to choose. That is huge, huge, huge. So I did pull out a lot of things here in the book, and we may go through those at the end, but something that I so admire about you is the kind of daddy you are. Now, because I know you and I follow you on Facebook, and so I see all these things about being you being a daddy, but it just makes me so proud the way that you selflessly love those boys. I mean, it's becoming less normal today how you sink everything into them, and they are your pride and your joy, and you treat them like they are your everything. And I love that about you. So do you have any do you have anything about fatherhood? Don't you have a side, or don't you have some things where you deal with helping men become strong fathers?
Right. Excuse me. So one of the things I was pursuing, like in my path, was like helping dads be bad, and that is being an awesome dad. And now I have I've kind of like taken a break from really pursuing it the way I was pursuing it, because I felt like maybe that wasn't the way I was going with it, really wasn't the path that needed to be on. So I just kind of pulled out and just kind of stopped. And but I still have a book that I'm going to be writing. I have these other ones first that I'm trying to put in place, but it is specifically about steps on how to be an awesome dad. And that is something that I do and I help people with, and I talk to other dads about. And that's part of like the life coaching thing that I feel like it all really goes into the whole life coaching and helping people in the health, wealth, and relationships. Because relationships isn't just about, oh, hey, me and my boyfriend or girlfriend or my wife or husband or whatever. It can be about you and your children. It can be about you and your coworkers. It's just about how you deal with other people. But anyways, yeah, that all encompasses that. But my boys, I mean, as you see, I mean, I got all these pictures up here. I mean, these are all my boys. Those are the primary ones. And I got another one over there. Like, there's another one over there. So, like, most of the pictures I have are my children, because they are, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I'm just spiritually bonded with them. I just love them so much. And even though, yeah, they can just annoy and irritate the heck out of me. They know how to push the buttons better than anyone else on this planet. And man, they can just mess you up. But you know what? Through all of it, it's just I got this love for them, and I know that I'm the only one, aside from their mother, of course, but us as the parents, like we're the only ones. We can set them up for success or failure. And the extreme, there's no like, oh, it's just to this point or just to this point. No, you can't see where either extreme will go, but it will be a lifetime wherever it is you send them. So you have to be very mindful and very careful about what you're doing, the relationship you have, and how you interact with these children, because it's. I mean, and I was just holding Andrew earlier. He jumped on me, I was on the bed, and I was just hugging on him, and I just held his little face up to me, and I just said, you know what? You're gonna be an old man before you ever leave. You're gonna become a very old man, and you're gonna be able to see your children, your grandchildren, your great grandchildren, and you know, it's like, and that's just what I instill in them, you know. I just tell them that, and I whisper these things into them into their ears at night when they're sleeping, you know, positive affirmations, because I want it to be sunk into their mind that nobody or anything in this world can alter or change anything besides themselves. That there's all the love they need is right inside of them, and until they figure that out, I'll keep telling them, right, and I'll keep giving them that love. So that, and I could go on and on, because and I don't think I could ever put in words how much I do love them boys. So, but yeah, people need to realize just the power they have as a parent. So
It's the blessing of the father is biblical. And I'm sure that you've studied that. And it is so, so, so important. And words hold such power in the things that are planted into children when they are children. Trauma abounds, and you know, we've all got it. We've all got the baggage, we've all got the trauma, but with you being very intentional with how you are taking care of them and raising them, and the pattern that you set before them, and the love that you pour into them, and the positive words that you give them, you're changing their lives. You are changing history. You know, you're giving them something that they can't get elsewhere. And it's so important. It makes me so very proud of you. And so thank you from me for that.
Thanks.
When we talk about limiting beliefs and negative self-talk and things that limit us from achieving or being or getting, what do you think is the most common barrier, or what are some barriers that we can turn to set ourselves up for success? How can we turn that? What are some things we can do to push on through these barriers that we come up against, especially if we're talking about this?
Right. So everything really comes back, kind of like you said, choice. Everything that we need really is already right here inside of us. It's already in there. And if now I'm not saying I can learn how to fly a plane without getting in there and studying it, but I'm saying that the drive and the desire or the willpower to get myself from this point to go to that class is all within me, and to finish that class is all within me. So a lot of people, a lot of times, it just comes down to how much belief do they have in themselves? Where, at what point are they going to say, okay, I'm going to stop telling myself I can't and start telling myself I can. And stop saying, oh, this issue, and I need this money, I need this to line up this way, and I need this to happen this way, and I need this. And stop doing that crap and just say, you know what, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to find a way. I'm going to figure it out. And they take that mindset, right? And then they start putting energy behind it, and then they start putting focus, and then they start driving towards it, and they start asking the questions. We live in a time and an age today, oh my gosh, that people are making a living. I'll just say a living. I won't even say like how much money some of these folks are making, but I'll just say a living where they don't work another job. They just dance in front of a camera. And I mean that like goofy dancing, things like that, like just trends and stuff. And they make money. And that's phenomenal. But that's my point, is like, instead of being, and I'm guilty of this sometimes too. I have to like stop and be like, okay, don't be jealous, be happy, and take that energy and say, you know what, they're doing that. Let me grab that energy and bring it in and use it as motivation. But what we need to not do, the other side of it, be like, oh, they're making money from that. Oh my gosh, it's so annoying. And oh, why can't I do that? And start realizing, wow, they're making money from that. Okay, and start putting their energy into it and realize that they can do it, whether it's them doing that on one of those apps online, or going on YouTube or making videos like this, or whatever it is they're passionate about. And even if they don't know what they're passionate about, just do it. And that's where it is. I didn't know how to start a cleaning business, a window cleaning business 7 years ago. No idea. I didn't know what the heck I was doing, but I knew I wanted to start something to make some little extra money to help my family. Window cleaner comes in, knocks on the windows he's cleaning, and then the light bulb hit. And at that moment, I could have done one of two things. I could have said, you know what? Nah, I ain't gonna be a window cleaner. I'm gonna clean nobody's window. I'm not gonna go do that hard, challenging, back-breaking work. Like, no, that's or oh, I can't do that. I can't figure out how to do that. Or I can do exactly what I did do and take this thing, this little black box in front of me, and I typed into Google how to be a window cleaner, into YouTube or whatever. In the second video, I was hooked. And I basically did exactly that. And I took some money and I invested in a few things. But honestly, I invested like $500, but to start. But I could have invested $100 or $60 and still started the same path, right? So the question about like limiting mindset, like how, what is it that people, get from being able to do it or not do it, is basically just their mindset. You have to just be able to just say, you know what, I'm gonna just take it. Whatever obstacle comes my way, and this is how I say it, I don't care how big the mountain is, I will either find a way around it, find a way under it, through it, or over it. But I'm gonna find the way, and I'm gonna end up on the other side, period. And you have to continue to have that intent. Even on your low days, even if you only do 1% on one day, if you add that up one step every day, it's going to end up where you've walked 1,000 miles, so you just got to keep doing it. If you fall back 10 steps, that's fine. Just the next day, get up and keep going. Just keep pursuing it. And it's all right here. Everything you need is already inside of you. You don't need anybody else, even though it's nice and it's wonderful and it's great. Just like when you're talking about our experience and our journey, it almost brought me to tears. It did bring me to tears a couple of times, but even if it's just you,
Right.
Think of all the people out there where it was just them. I got a great friend, him and his wife. Man, it was always just him. Then it was always just them. And it's like, they have friends, it's just them. They didn't really have family that they were connected with for a long time. I think maybe they kind of talk to them now, but it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, you can do it. You just have to have that mindset that you can do it and that you will find a way. Don't worry about the what ifs or the what's that I don't have or any, don't worry about it. Just have the focus, the drive, the energy, find it, create it, and just keep moving towards it. And I'm telling you, you'll, even if the thing that you think you want to do doesn't happen, just like with the cigar thing, if it never happens, that's fine. But you know what? I learned from it. I learned that I can pray and set my intent and I can get the outcome. Literally, I learned from that experience. I learned that if I want to go to a different country, hey, I can make it happen, you know? So I learned about that. So just do it. Just have the mindset and do it.
What about visualization? Tell me a little bit about how you use that.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so visualization. Love it, love it, love it. Just to simplify this, because this is exactly what it is. When life coaching, right?
Right.
I have, not in a life coaching format, but I have spoken to a group of people, even to like a church and things like that, into big groups. But I haven't gone out into a stage to speak on life coaching yet.
Yes.
And yet. And even though I was invited actually to go to Little Rock to do that, but then I had missed some days. I got sick, so I ended up, taking up some days to go to work, so I didn't miss it. So I ended up having to miss that. But my thing on that, the visualization, is that I sit down, whether I'm driving or I'm at home, whether it's in a meditative state or if I'm, like I said, just driving an autopilot, or I'm at work if I have a moment. I imagine myself already in front of those people. I imagine myself already speaking to them. I imagine the energy that I have, the pitches. I mean, I imagine the whole thing and I feel it. I feel the energy. I feel the heat of the lamp on my face. I feel their energy coming back, their uproars and excitements and claps and their questions and me answering that. I feel that whole presence. And that for me is a visualization, is I put myself in the moment. I connect the future with the present, because to me, there's no disconnect, right? There's no such thing as past or future. There is in that extent, but like it's just the now. Every moment's just this very moment of now. And I determine where I'm going to go and how I'm going to get there. But the visualization allows me to depict on where that place is going to be and what that future is going to look like and what it's going to feel like. And you can use, there are so many people out there, so many examples. I listen to motivational podcasts, and John Paul, is that his name? He's the boxer. Somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think everyone pretty much knows who I'm talking about. But he was just on a podcast. First time I ever listened to a podcast where he was the person that came on and spoke, and him and the host were like real good friends. But they use visualization in the moment, and it's also called anchoring. They used anchoring, and when he went out to go box somebody, they were talking about getting it with the left hook, the knockout with the left hook. And I'll send you this later, just remind me. But before he went out to go fight, his buddy was with him in the locker room, in that locker room area, and he was like telling him, he said, I want you right now in this moment to imagine you walking back in here and seeing my face, and you saying left hook, and saying that was it and that you won. And so they did that. They visualized it. They anchored it. That feeling, he felt it. And then you know what happened? Sure enough, it was the left hook. And the first thing they said to each other was left hook when they came back in the locker room. And he won it. And there is this power. You know how small it can be? I'll tell you how small it is. Another visualization technique I use, and this is hilarious, but it's just true. It's what I do. If I'm clean, I have the son, the youngest one is Jasper, right? The baby. And I've got a whole bunch of pictures. I just haven't printed one yet to put on here of him actually born yet. But when it changes butt, you got to throw the diaper in the trash, right? Well, you know what I do? I visualize it going in the trash, and now it's such a funny thing, but bam! And I'm talking the middle of the night. I'll look the other way, but I imagine it in there, and it hits in there. And I know that's silly and that's goofy, but that is it in practice. It's the same concept. If you play basketball, you play football, if you drive fast, like whatever the case is, I think that if we all took a moment and thought about what visualization is. And we think we could find times and places where we've done it and have achieved the outcome we desired. And it's just like that. If you want to throw a basketball up in the net, you have to imagine it's already in there, right? Even if you've had to throw 1,000 times, every single time you practice the shot, what did you think of? Did you think of it going over to the bleachers? No. You imagined it going into the basketball net. You felt what it would feel like for it to go in there, and you practiced that. You didn't just practice how you did your shots, you practice your visualization for every shot. It's the exact same concept. So what we discuss here, what I discuss in the book, it's all real laws, natural laws. It's just different applications.
And there's science behind it. We won't get into it.
Yes.
People want to look it up, they can look it up, but there is actually I knew a man that was a golf pro, and he trained people, and it was visualization.
Yeah.
And it works, and it is real. And he was a doctor also, so he knew. It's amazing. It's amazing. So many things. We have so many tools that are becoming more mainstream now that are truly life altering. Okay, you used a word. I also want you to elaborate on the word intent or intention. If you could give me just a little bit about that.
Intent or intention. It's getting late, so I think I'm throwing myself off here. So the intent. Can you give me an example of how I used it? Because
you said I set the intent for when I prayed. It was my intent that my prayers were answered. Or so you used that word several times throughout this, and I just a lot of people might not have the grasp of what that means, or how to use your intent.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah,
focusing your intention. So basically it is so if you want to you have a desire for something to happen, right? Then it's my intention that I'm saying this with the intention that it's going to come true, and it is going to happen. So if I want, let's say I want to get an account this month that's worth $5,000, right? So I'm going to say to myself, this is just a very small example, a little example, but I have the intention of when I make it a statement, or here we go, I can tie two things in together. When I visualize me getting on a call, right, and having that conversation with somebody, doesn't matter who it is, it's just somebody, right? Then I visualize that, and I'm visualizing what the conversation is going to be like, how it's going to go, how it feels, the energy from both sides, both parties coming in. And I put in, let's say I'm doing visualization work. While I'm doing that visualization work with the intent of believing that it's going to happen. And so I have that belief that it's going to happen, and I do it as if with the intent of it happening. The same concept can be when I pray with the intention that it's going to happen. I believe it's going to happen. And I give thanks to God that it's happening, that it's going to happen. So I don't ever ask, right? I don't, hey, could you please do this? I say, thank you, Father God, for protecting us today. Thank you, Father God, for protecting my children tonight. Thank you for putting that shroud of safety around them. Thank you for getting me to work safe. Hey, thank you for bringing me the income that I'm needing to cover my bills and expenses. Thank you for bringing me the new clients to be able to do this business full time. So whatever I say and do, I have the intention of it coming true. And the things that I speak is the intention. Hopefully that covers kind of what you're asking.
That was amazing. That was really, you've said some powerful things, but that, especially the part about thanking God, just trust, because that means you trust and you think. I love that. Thank you. Okay. To close out, you want to talk about your coaching biz, because I'm very excited about this part too. So how can people get a hold of you? What are they looking for when they come to you?
Definitely. So, okay. So the coaching business, basically, first off, why do I feel like I would make a great coach for anybody? I think that's really an important question. If you're going to look for a mentor, because that's basically what it is. It's a mentorship, essentially. When you look for a mentor, especially when you're paying to mentor you, right? Life coaching, it's important to know that can they just do it just because they say they do it, or what's their experience for them to get to the point where they feel like they can be a great mentor or life coach. And for me, my experiences in my life, it wasn't just like, oh, I went through some hard times and then that was it. No, it's I went through some hard times. I learned from those hard times and I grew through them, right? And I applied ways that I had to seek out. And this is like another Zoom that we could do, but moments of transitions in our life, certain things come in and certain transitions. But I had to seek out ways that I wanted to seek out ways that I could transform my mind because I knew at a younger age and as I was growing that nobody can depict how I feel except for myself. No matter how bad, evil, or dark it may get, or sad, or indifferent, or even happy, only I determine how I react to it, or how happy or how sad I get. So I had to work on those. I still do work on those things, but far better than what I was 10 years ago. And so I put the things that I teach people into practice myself already. And I've seen the results firsthand, just like everything we just discussed here. So what I do is that my passion is to help other people and to serve other people. My papa said, find something you love to do and find someone to pay you to do it. Well, it took me a long time, but from all the different titles, I've been a president of multiple organizations, a vice president of multiple organizations. I've been a city councilman. I've written a couple books already. A father being the best one of all those titles. But I've had all these different cool titles, and it's all because of my mindset, because of how I put my mindset. And but inside of all that, I learned in the core of all of that one thing, and that one common trait, and that was that I was serving other people. I always found something that I was passionate about, and it was always serving other people. And so that kind of got me to this point of where I'm at now with the coaching and the motivational coaching. So what I do is I help people in the health side of it, the wealth side of it, the relationship side of it, and then just the general motivational side of it. But it's all about whatever they're going through, right? We look at the issues that are at hand and we focus on the mindset. That's the main thing. Motivational life coaching is mainly the mindset and how to look on the inside, transform that inside, so then that light will shine brighter and it'll change those other areas of your life in health, wealth, and relationships. And so the easiest way to contact me, of course, if they have Facebook, just look up my full name, Andrew J.S. Hefley, and then they can go and they can also email me, abetterlifemindset@gmail. But those are the two primary ways I tell people, because if they go to my Facebook and they follow it, they see all these motivational posts every morning. They see different things I write. Yeah, so so that's the best one. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, thank you, Andrew, for your time. This has been so fun. I feel like we will do it again. And
Oh, yeah.
I am, as I said, super proud. You do so many wonderful things, and I have enjoyed watching your journey, and I'm excited to see where you're going next because it's going to be fabulous.
Fabulous. Yes, it is. I can't wait. I'm excited for every step because it's just going to even bigger and better places. So
You're
very
happy
excited for
about
it.
where you are, but you're excited about where you're going.
Exactly. Very excited. So very, very happy where I'm at, just like you said, but super stoked about the journey that I'm on and where God's taking me and leading me and where I'm going with it. So
Thank you.
yep. You're welcome. Thank you so much.